The Walk Again project is championed by Miguel Nicolelis, a Brazilian neuroscientist working at Duke University in the U.S. The goal of this international consortium is to improve the lives of paralyzed people, letting them walk again by using brain-controlled robotic devices. Nicolelis made it to the headlines by saying he would demonstrate his groundbreaking technology, making a tetraplegic youngster get up from his wheelchair, walk and kick the ball to give start to the FIFA World Cup. Nicolelis also said he wanted his initiative to showcase a new Brazil, capable of impressing the whole world. He likened his initiative to the conquest of the moon. It would be the tropical moonshot. For the demonstration, his team was awarded $13 million from the Brazilian government. Private donors also contributed, but the exact sums remain undisclosed. Did we make it? The demonstration at the World Cup opening lasted only a few seconds, and was described by many as frustrating. Nicolelis declared that the demonstration had been boycotted by the TV crew. FIFA denied it by saying that the few seconds shown were all there was to the demonstration. The bulky exoskeleton didn't walk, but was carried to its position by a car. It stood still by the side of the field, and its only movement was the kick. The exoskeleton was all the time connected to other equipment, raising doubts about its autonomy, a crucial feature for practical applications. A high-resolution analysis of the demonstration shows a mysterious red object. It was pulled out exactly when the kick was started. What was it needed for? According to some interviews, a gyroscope-based system was supposed to lead to perfect and effortless balance. A few lab videos published by Nicolelis, shot under controlled conditions, show a heavy exoskeleton that fails to keep balance, needing the help of people and hangers to walk and stand still. It is really difficult to evaluate the achievements from a few videos. Nicolelis insists that all goals were achieved. If that is the case, the group should prepare immediately a complete demonstration, with the athlete getting up from the chair, walking, and kicking the ball. But this time there should be no car, no wires, no hangers, no people to give balance, and no mysterious objects, too. There is still a lot of interest from the general public, the media, and especially from the paralyzed people. This way no one would be kept wondering about the capabilities of the exoskeleton, and about its usefulness for the movement impaired. Effortless brain control. One of the main points of the initiative is that the paralyzed athlete would control the exoskeleton quite naturally by just imagining the movements. His brain activity would be read and the exoskeleton would move accordingly. By analyzing many papers published on the topic of brain control interfaces, including many by Nicolelis, researchers anticipated that the technology was not ready for user-level application, and that important limitations should be expected from the World Cup demonstration. All the results published so far weren't good enough to sustain natural walking. These researchers anticipated that the exoskeleton would probably receive a few simple commands that would take seconds to read, and that the motor acts would have to be controlled by the robot suit itself. It is unclear if the Walk Again team was able to increase the capacity of brain-machine interfaces beyond previously published results, enabling natural walking, or if they opted for the high-level commands approach. It is also difficult to evaluate the effort necessary to control the apparatus, and how natural was its operation. By the videos presented so far, the brain control achieved seems anything but effortless. Technique. In the first announcements of the demonstration, Nicolelis described the use of invasive techniques, similar to the ones investigated by his laboratory on non-human primates. Electrodes would be inserted into the brain of the athlete, giving direct access to neural firing. Similar techniques had already been used by other teams, demonstrating the control of prosthetic devices by human subjects. As the demonstration date approached, it was announced that instead of the invasive techniques, scalp electrodes would be used to control the exoskeleton. The use of a safer approach was well received, but was also surprising, given that in the past, Nicolelis declared that this technique was inadequate. A blog entry by Alan Rudolph, a member of the Walk Again team, was perhaps more surprising. The text implies that besides brain activity, preserved muscle activity may have also been used to control the exoskeleton. The details of the techniques continue to be a complete mystery, and by now, it is impossible to estimate how much of the control was actually derived from the brain, and how much came from the musculature. Novelty claims. There is also some controversy regarding claims of novelty. Many teams around the world have been working on exoskeletons for different applications. For example, a company named Rewalk Robotics, unrelated to the Walk Again project, founded in 2001, sells wearable robotic exoskeletons to help paraplegic clients walk today. The devices have similar goals, but the Rewalk personal system is not controlled by brain signals, but by simply tilting the body, which seems quite natural and effortless for the users. Thus, the major novelty of the Walk Again approach would not be the exoskeleton, but the fact that it would be controlled by the brain. But even brain-controlled exoskeletons have been investigated by other research teams. Some studies on exoskeletons controlled by encephalographic signals have already been published. The approach seems very similar to the one apparently used by the Walk Again team. There are also a couple of papers published on the brain control of robotic prostheses that provide tactile feedback to the users, which was said to be another of the novelties of the Walk Again initiative. Thus, in terms of innovation, it is not clear how much is to be expected from this project. Only when details of the technology are made available, the incremental, though potentially important contributions of the Walk Again project will be known. Advancing Brazilian science. Some criticism was raised on the grounds that, by subcontracting the main scientists and engineers from other countries, and by performing most of the work abroad, the initiative might have failed to advance Brazilian know-how in these technologies. The lack of detailed information about the participants and functions, and about where they conducted the work, makes it difficult to evaluate these claims. Inspiration. The highly unusual choice of a mediatic approach to science, culminating in a demonstration at the FIFA World Cup, was justified by the goal of inspiring a whole generation to choose science as a career, potentially contributing to the nation's future. The type of inspiration that followed America's landing on the moon. The Walk Again project would be the tropical moonshot, as Nicol Ellis put it. The successful landing on the moon was inspirational indeed, as would be attested by many researchers that chose to pursue science after witnessing this moment in their childhoods. It remains unclear how inspired the new generations will be by the Walk Again project. So far, there seems to be, if anything, a generalized sense of frustration. Expenditure. Finally, some have criticized the expenditure associated with the project. A world-renowned Brazilian scientist pointed out for the newspaper O Estado de São Paulo that the sums spent with the demonstration were highly unusual for Brazil. $13 million would indeed support the work of many Brazilian laboratories, many of which lack adequate funding for performing important research. $13 million would also be enough to fully support hundreds of PhD students abroad, learning at the best centers for clinical robotics in the world. Some also suggested that the money would be better spent on wheelchairs, given that many paralyzed people in Brazil lack the resources to buy this simple apparatus. It is difficult to compare the different alternatives, but in a country with limited resources, one should choose based on the benefits created for the society. For the Walk Again project, after its goals are said to have been achieved, the outcomes are unclear at best. Conclusion. The media coverage of the World Cup demonstration raised the hopes of the paralyzed people. They expected to witness a revolutionary technology that would dramatically improve their lives. The tropical moonshot that would make them walk again. This time at least, the high hopes gave way to generalized frustration. When addressing the media after the event, Nicole Ellis argued that the expectations were unrealistic, and that science was no Hollywood film. He said that many years would still be needed until these technologies eventually prove useful. This more realistic assessment should have reached the public and the funding agencies long before the event.
E o mais terrível, o mais absurdo, o mais quase surreal na nossa história, na história brasileira, é que o Santos Dumont fez algo muito raro. Ele falou e cumpriu, né?